Awesome. Hello, all. Welcome to episode 7 of the To Be podcast. And I am welcomed by a good friend of mine, Tasha Nicholas. How are you?
Hello, hello. I am doing fantastic. How are you doing?
Always doing wonderful. Sometimes. What's been what's been what's been going on? I guess for people that are listening and viewing this, we connected oh over a year ago now, right?
Mm-hmm.
After I did my NLP, and which is neuro linguistic programming, and then you did yours earlier than that, but we connected through a Facebook community, and we sort of offered to support each other in that. So I would love to know, like this, love to know like what's been your biggest takeaway since we connected?
Mm. What's been my biggest takeaway since we connected? Biggest takeaway from NLP, from our friendship, from the practice we did. Which one? Well, all of them.
Oh, oh,
All of them. Go for it, right? Okay. Awesome. So, my biggest takeaway from meeting you has been literally putting myself. So taking action, putting myself out there, trusting my abilities, knowing that practice makes progress, not perfection. I always say perfection is an idea that doesn't exist. We don't have to worry about perfection. We just want to look at making progress. And our sessions together that we did where we practiced, that showed me the value of making progress, not perfection. So that's probably one of the key takeaways I got out of all the things since I've met you, since we practiced together, the conversations that we've had. Every time we check in and we're like, hey, how you going? And it's like, oh my gosh, this is happening and this is happening and this is happening. It's all because we've taken consistent action and that has made progress. We haven't, you know, um, I'm about to say striven for perfection. We haven't been striving for perfection. We have just been striving for progress, and that has shown results. So, there's a thing that is called uh, focusing on the outcome versus focusing on the process. And when you're focused on the outcome, we tend to sometimes put towards an energy that is kind of pushing away. So we
hmm
want to fight
yeah,
for what we want, and then we end up pushing it away because we're actually not having this open energy. We're actually closing ourselves up. We're pushing rather than drawing in. And so since we've started, getting to know each other and practicing our sessions, what I found was I was super outcome focused, which is really awesome. It has its place. Don't get me wrong. We have to have the vision, the dream, the outcome in mind. But when we're only striving for the outcome to be here now, instead of looking at, hey, how can I make this process? We tend to actually fall behind and we close
mm,
ourselves up.
mm,
And so that is something that I super found as a key takeaway for myself is trust in the process. And that's the other saying too,
mm.
right? We hear it all the time. Trust the process, trust the process, trust the process. And there is so much truth to it. We actually do need to just trust the process and trust ourselves to make that
100%.
process.
Yeah.
100%.
And
Yes.
what and
Yeah.
so why did you start this whole coaching journey? Like tell us about yourself, because I know we only connected through the NLP community, but I really want to understand like why did you actually start this?
Yeah, amazing. Okay, so to cut a very long story short, I grew up with a ton of, let's say, abusive and traumatic experiences. So I experienced sexual trauma, I experienced verbal abuse, emotional abuse, and mental abuse throughout my entire upbringing. So from the ages of, I would say, like the earliest I can remember this stuff starting with emotional abuse and verbal abuse is probably 7 or earlier. And then it lasted right up until I was like, I reckon about 21 years old. And then it was when I was 22 when I realized everything I had been through and started to be questioning things and wanting to heal all of those, let's say open wounds that I had. So through the experiences growing up, I mean, my parents divorced. That was like the first thing that really cracked me and caused a instability within myself, because all of a sudden, we're moving houses and there was new family members as my dad got a new partner and there were new kids involved. And all of a sudden I was one of 7 kids in a blended family, being second eldest with a lot of responsibility to look after the younger ones. So we had a house of 10 people at one point, and it just wasn't an environment where my emotional needs were able to be met. So they worked super hard at providing, housing, clothing, food, all the physical needs, they were always met, but the emotional needs were not met. And then throughout the years growing up, there was so much more mental abuse and emotional abuse that came as a result. I don't actually think that, my caretakers and my parents ever intended harm or intended to come off abusive in any kind of way. I think they just were doing the best that they could in the generation that they were in, doing what the doctors said for them to do, reading the parenting books at that time. So I think they were just doing the best that they could, wanting to get parenting right. And unfortunately, we just didn't have the education that we now have today. After that, I then experienced the sexual trauma in relationships, and there was an older man who creeped on me, who had access to me and my family for about 5 years, from when I was 12 to 17 years old. And I was raised to be a very good, obedient girl and to not say no, and that kind of upbringing. So for that 5 years, it was so hard for me to speak out and be like, hey, this is going on, or hey, this made me feel this way, and this isn't actually okay. And I'm a kid and I know that. So to speak out and actually put a stop to things was really, really difficult. And then so when I was 17, I put my foot down. I was like, no more. I know where this is heading and I'm not going to let it go there. And I need to now protect myself as a 17-year-old. So it was just thing after thing after thing. And then I got into relationships with boyfriends, and there was sexual trauma there. And, I hold absolutely nothing against anyone in my past, but these were just the experiences I went through. I struggled with the state of depression and anxiety for like 15 years of my life. And I'm 25 now. So it's a big chunk of my life that I went through that experience. It led to symptoms of PTSD. I had no idea at the time what I was experiencing. I thought I was going insane. I thought I was going crazy. I was told that I was going crazy. I was questioned, like, what's wrong with you? All these things. And little did I know, it was just anxiety and, feeling depressed and all that kind of stuff that was coming up for like 15 years. So by the time I was 19, I had so much like hatred, and I laugh now because I'm just so totally different. But when I was 19, I was like this whole other version, full of hatred, just really angry at the world, angry at life, angry at myself, angry at the people around me. I had no understanding, and my father took me to see a spiritual healer, and I have not turned back since. So that was really the beginning of my self-development journey. And like I said, I have not looked back since. I have only progressed forward, literally because I've seen the results. I've seen the progress within the process. So as I made more and more progress, I got deeper and deeper into this self-development world and was like, oh my gosh, this stuff is amazing. I'm healing. I don't have so much hate anymore. I'm actually feeling happy for the first time. I mean, I remember when I was 12 years old, I woke up and one morning, and I remember actually thinking, is this all my life is ever going to be? Will I ever not be miserable? Would it even matter if I just left? Would anyone even care or miss me? So those thoughts like started creeping in at about 12 years old. And then they escalated a little bit over time, but I reminded myself and I told myself, I'm going to make it. I'm going to make it. I don't know how, but I'm going to make it. And I reckon, my guides were working with me and just reassuring me along that journey. So at 19, I moved out and started to, work out who I was without my family, without a toxic environment, without those people in my life constantly in my life day in, day out. Then I moved back home for a period of time, and then I moved out again. And that time I had to like relearn life completely. And it was at that point that I really dove into self-development. Coaching came into my life. So I think I was 20 when life coaching came into my life. It was a course that I had gotten access to with a different program I was doing with a company, and they were offering it for like a discounted price, and I had no idea what life coaching was. I was like, oh, that just sounds interesting. I'll go and check it out. Did the course, fell in love with it. And ever since then, like I said, I haven't looked back. So I have just progressed myself over the years. I've dived into more workshops and more courses over the years, and I've just been a bit of a self-development junkie, really.
Yeah. What is there anyone that you had in your life at the time to allow you to support you?
I think the only person who was able to support me was my father driving me from home to the center where my spiritual healer ran sessions. But otherwise, emotional support, no, I was my only person. I definitely had my older sister, but I think for me, what I can remember, a lot of the times that we would have conversations, it was all just trauma bonding. There was no, we're going to make it out. It's going to be great. Like, life's going to be amazing. You don't even know yet. Like, it was never really like that. It was like, oh my gosh, this environment is so awful. So
Yeah.
I really had myself, and I got to a point where I had seen my entire life play out in front of me from my parents and my grandparents, because I watched them and I watched their attitudes and I watched how they spoke and what they thought about life. And I just thought to myself, you know what? That seems really miserable, and I don't want a miserable life. I'm like, at that point, I was 12, and I was like, I already feel so miserable, and I don't want to get to 80 and have nothing be changed. So there was always like this burning desire within me to make life better than miserable. There was always this like desire within me to be like, go find out about life and go find about the amazing things that can happen, because this cannot be all it is, and it's not. There is so much more.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I want to go back to the point where you said, like, with personal development, like it's like you're in this space or environment that it's all trauma bonding. Like you're actually just getting along with people that have been through our own traumas. Yes, we've got our own traumas, but I guess it's as soon as you step away from that, you can actually reflect on where you're at in that place and time. And when you step away from that, you're able to learn the lessons in what you've experienced, so you can actually reach your full potential. And the fullest, I always say, like, the growing never stops, right? If you're not growing, you're staying the same. And if you're staying the same, well, then you're not doing anything else in your life that's going to help you move forward to where you want to go. And if you haven't found that purpose, well, then you've just got to unblock shit in your life that's going to allow you to find that purpose. Because we all have a divine purpose in this world. It's just a matter of the thoughts you may say to yourself, the belief systems you have, the conditioning you may believe, to actually move forward from that and remove it and let go of it. So how has that shaped you to the woman you are now?
Oh, dude, like you said, we all have a defined purpose, right? So for me, I absolutely know that one of my biggest roles here on earth is to be a mother. And it's not just to my own biological children. It is to mother with mother energy. So I bring my mothering energy to people that I come into contact with. It doesn't matter if you're an adult or a child or male or female. I treat you the same. I treat you with love and respect. So that's the thing that's there. The way that I grew up in the generations, with the generations before me, that affected how my parents then raised me. And so with the way that I was raised, there was such a huge disconnect between mother and baby, mother and child, a huge disconnect between siblings, just family in general. And again, like I said, I got to a point where I was like, there has to be more than this. And I knew, like, ever since I was about 7 years old, I was super drawn to babies. I would like want to learn all about
babies.
Yeah. I would want to learn all about them. And I was like this tiny little infant. Like, what? How is
They're
that a
curious.
thing?
Yeah, yeah.
And I was
Very
so
curious.
super curious. And so I started to um, just, whenever there was children around, I'd take care of them. I remember actually being like a primary school age child and being left alone with a toddler to look after them while my parents were out working. And I'm in the house like with this toddler. This place was huge as well. Like this was a friend's house, and they had a huge house, huge backyard, swimming pool, and I was just left with these responsibilities. So ever since I was a literal child myself, I have been mothering. I was like in charge of nap time, feeding, all of it, right? And then so ever since I was really little, I knew that this was something for me to be doing, for me to be connecting from the disconnect.
Yeah.
So I often did that through roles of working with children. So I worked in a childcare center, I nannied for 5 years. I did babysitting as well, which are two different things. So I did like a whole bunch of different roles working with children where I became part of the family, worked with the children, connected to them. And what I found was there is so much disconnect within these families.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I can no longer be the outsider coming in to make the connection. What I need to now be
Yeah.
doing is teaching the parents, hey, here's how you need to connect with your children. So
Yeah.
how has it shaped me to be the woman that I am? Well, that divine purpose, the experiences of not having the connection myself, pushed me towards finding out how to make the connection. That's actually why I started in childcare, because I was 19 and I thought, I know that my role here is to be a mother, but I have no idea how to do that without damaging my child's mental development, emotional
Yeah.
development. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing to raise a child, and I want to start. So I was like, I'm going to go into childcare and I'm going to learn about children. And boy, did I.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
then
And
ended up, yeah,
one of the biggest, I guess one of the biggest needs is human connection. And for those that are listening and watching, it's like if we lose the disconnect is we don't feel like we belong. That's why most of us in this personal development, in whatever we're doing in life, we want others to be around us because we lose that disconnect. And when we lose the disconnect, we lose ourselves. So your divine purpose as a woman is the spot on like what it is to be a woman essentially. And you've had to find that from the experience you've had to the moment we're in right now to
So
understand
yeah,
that.
so to find that, I had to go from never having that, or to
Yes.
barely having that,
Yeah.
to then find out how to have it. Absolutely.
And to find out how to, and then what is one thing that you found, like just in one word, that moment where it clicked?
The moment where it clicked. The moment where it clicked that it was my purpose.
Mm-hmm.
There was not just one moment. There was never one moment. It was a constant reminder throughout the years. It was moment after moment after moment, because I never trusted myself. So I had to be reminded all the time.
Right. Like that's exactly, and you've got to be reminded because there's people that come into your life for a season and there's people that come into your life for a reason. And as in those, and as in those moments, there's no one word that can describe it because every moment we're in, like this moment or the moment you've had before this moment, is gonna be a lesson in that.
Yeah. Like, for example, when I started in childcare, with the way that I was raised, I was taught, you use threats, you use timeouts, you use disconnection, you use punishment, you use bribery. Like, that's how you parent a child. And when I entered the childcare center, I was like, oh my God, I can't smack them. I can't put them in a timeout. I can't make threats here. I was like, how the heck do I discipline a child then? I was so confused, but I was like, I'm open to learning. And what I found was all of that comes from a place of fear. It's fear-based parenting. And to be able to not do that, you need to just act from love. It's love-based parenting. So and all behavior is communication. So whenever there were problem behaviors, I would actually be the one that would put all the children who were constantly crying to sleep or to settle them. I was always given like the problem children, or just the kids who were always unsettled and dysregulated, because I was able to keep myself regulated and give them love that they were needing. And we had the closest relationships after that. And I became the most trusted adult in the room for those children to come to. So it taught me in childcare, the fear-based parenting is not it. That creates distrust and disconnect. The love-based parenting is where it's at. The times after that, I started working with autistic children, and I ended up being on a team of therapists, and I learned from therapists, and it's the same thing. It doesn't matter if your kid has a diagnosis or not. You still treat them the same. You treat them with the love and the respect that they need, because they are human just like you. So like one experience in childcare taught me that fear-based parenting is not it. Working in one experience with autistic kids on a team with therapists taught me brain development. So there was never just like one moment where it clicked. It was thing after thing after thing. So first it was like not fear-based parenting, then it was gentle parenting, and then it was brain development. It was emotional development. Like the prefrontal cortex doesn't even start developing until the ages of 4 to 8 years old. So when you have a toddler who's 2 and who's throwing a tantrum because, they can't put their nappy on their head or something like that, it's like, yeah, there's a literal part of their brain that hasn't even started developing yet. But then we smack them and put them in timeouts. It doesn't make sense. So there was moment after moment after moment that it clicked time and time again that I'm on the right path, and this is what I need to be doing to work with children and to be able to raise my own, and then teach others to do the same as well, to make that shift within themselves so that they can raise the next generation in a different way than how they were raised.
And how do you do that?
How do you do that? I love that. Heal yourself. You have to do it yourself. You need to reparent yourself. When I left home that second time, like I said, I actually had to relearn life. I had to relearn myself. I had to dive so deep into myself to heal the parts that I never wanted to look at, the parts that scared me, because it wasn't until I was able to do that I was able to create really deep connections with people in general, because I was finally able to do that with myself, to connect deeply with me. So how do you do that? How do you raise the next generation without fucking them up? It's to work on yourself and accept that you're going to make mistakes. You are going to make mistakes.
It's part of life.
Accept that and learn how to apologize to children when you make mistakes, because we are just human. We are just human. With my 3 younger siblings, I remember when I was probably about 20, I got to a point in myself where I went, oh my God, Tash, every day is a screaming match with these guys, a power struggle every day. Like I really played a huge role in their lives and their upbringing. And I got to a point where I went, I'm turning into my parents and it feels awful. It's breaking my heart. I have to change because they're just kids. They don't know. I'm the adult. I have to make the change. And this is something that a lot of parents can be afraid to do. And that's okay to feel afraid of it. But we do need to put down the ego and the pride to go, you know what, I do need to work on myself. And I can accept that there's shit to work on so that I can move forward and have better relationships and be able to connect to my children, to my family, and to myself. So how do you do it? Work on healing yourself. It's not about fixing your children and making them behave the way that you want them to behave and making them be who you want them to be. It's all about you working on yourself, and they will follow those footsteps.
Yeah, I feel, although with healing yourself, like at the end of the day, like this is my own belief and opinion, something that I've learned on my own journey is that when you heal, like we're never broken. as human beings, it's always the conditions or the belief systems from others that make us feel like we're broken. And yes, we've got to heal ourselves internally in order to project it externally. But the one biggest thing that what I've got from that is you've got to find a place of love within yourself to help those other people, because you've got to fill your cup up first. If you don't fill your cup up first, well, then there's no point in trying to fill anyone else's cup up, right? Like, it's just simple. And this took me a long time to click. I've always knew we're in this world, like we're questioning things, like we're always questioning things, like different things. That's me personally. I don't know what your belief system is on that, but I've always knew that I had this thing inside of me that I could inspire others, but I didn't know until I actually got to that point and learned the lessons from what I've learned in my past to where I am now, that it's just the love I have for myself that's going to allow me to project that on others. What is your opinion on that? I'd like to hear your opinion.
Yeah, cool. So I'll start with the filling up your cup. I love that. This is something I talk about to my clients as well. When you have let's say your self-care cup, your cup.
Yeah.
When you have filled it halfway and then you start pouring it into the other cups around you, your children's cups, your partner's cups, your family's cups, whoever, you leave yourself very depleted.
Mm-hmm.
So what we actually want to aim to do instead is fill up your cup so much that it overflows. And it's from the overflowing cup that it then fills up the other cups around you. So when you work towards that, you're able to keep yourself centered. You're able to keep yourself feeling enough.
Yeah.
And it's never about being perfect. It's not about being your best 100% of the time. We're human. We're going to have our days. We're going to wake up feeling shitty some mornings. We're going to go to bed having an argument some nights. That stuff is going to happen. When we can accept the ebbs and flows of life, that's when it's easy. It's so hard when we fight against life, when we fight against ourselves.
Well, yeah, it's the hardest thing, and that's the one of the, I've got so many lessons I've learned, but one of the things is like being able to let go of the outcome and just trusting the process, as you said. And it's one thing that I say to myself and people that I work with, and is to trust the process. Like, the process, as long as you trust yourself in whatever you're doing in your life, nothing else matters, because the universe is always working for us in some way or another. Universe is God, source, whatever you want to call it. If you don't believe in all that's meh.
Each to their own. Yeah.
Each to their own, yeah. So massive.
Yeah, definitely. I think that when you talk about trusting the process, it's actually trusting yourself. So when we talk about trust the universe has your back. It's you. It's trusting yourself, trusting that you have your back.
You are the universe.
Because, you are the universe. Exactly. There you go.
Life is happening.
I do definitely, like, for myself. Yeah. We're just experiencing life, and that's totally okay. For me, I work with my guides. I talk to them all the time. I communicate with them, and it is just so insane how much there is out there for us and how much there is inside of us. When we trust the process, we are just simply working on trusting ourselves. When we are filling up our cup, that is us making progress. That is us putting in the work. So when you talk about how do you raise the next generation without, causing all of that harm, without all the emotional, mental, physical, psychological, sexual abuse, all that, it's to work on yourself. Whenever you feel triggered, it's actually just like an alarm, ding, 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 telling you where to work on yourself, right? Yeah. So, for example, so there's a family member I have that whenever we communicate, there is always a trigger, because I'm like, dude, come on, like, duh. But I, take a deep breath and I work on responding, not reacting. And then afterwards I go, whatever was triggered was a blessing from them, because they're helping to highlight what I need to work on, without them triggering me, or me feeling triggered from them, sorry, because they can't control how I feel. So without me feeling triggered from them, then I don't know what to work on. So as that person says something that then I feel triggered by, I'm like, it's just highlighting what I need to be working on. So thank you, human, for being the person to highlight that. So when we change our perspective of these things, we change how we feel. Right?
Yes.
So I can absolutely feel triggered, work through whatever it is that's being triggered, and then just be super grateful for that event. Fill back up your cup and pour out into the others, overflow into the others, like that. So when you are doing that, your children will see you working on yourself and they'll go, hey, I'm going to do that. They'll know that that is something that is just what humans do. We evolve. We're all about evolution, right? So whatever you want to call it, transcending all of it, right? So we have this innate knowing.
Yeah. And I think the essence, even if you're not a parent, or you're showing mothers or fathers in that example how to be a better parent. I mean, there's no right or wrong. I mean, they're only teaching you what they know. And when you can work on yourself, fill your cup up, this is from my own experiences, the people in your family, your friends will see the change in you, to give them permission to do the same. And I know when we all start this fucking journey, it's like, come with me. Just come and experience what I'm experiencing. I just want to help all of you. But then you got to realize that some people don't want to change in that moment. You've got to actually sometimes you got to give them that permission to change. And some people want to be stuck in this shit, which is completely fine. They can do that. But at the same time, they're only going to be staying the same where they are. They're not going to project moving forward in their life what they want to be, what they're designed, what they're defined to be in this world.
Yeah, and that's when you love from afar.
Yes.
That's when you just
That's
love
something
from afar.
you've taught me that as well, on my own journey, and it's just I'm sort of listening to it now, and it's like I've got people I'm surrounded by that actually remind me of that. And the high level people that are really good friends, they're actually they don't spend the time, they prioritize their time much more effectively now. And that's what I'm doing.
Yeah,
Is
exactly. That's exactly it.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
you're either a product of your environment, or the environment's a product of you.
Yeah, you really do become your environment.
Yes, exactly.
The environment
And
is one of the first things that we need to change. And environment, this is the thing I've been talking about recently as well. Environment isn't just external. Environment is your internal environment, your thoughts, your opinions, your feelings. You also need to work on your internal environment. So yes, as much as the external environment, the environment you live in, affects all of your thoughts, values, opinions, beliefs, all of that. Yes. But it's a great teaching moment for you to be able to go, okay, this is my external environment. This is how it's affecting me. How can I now make the choice to change how I'm responding to the external environment? Because when we have environments that you cannot change, for example, if you're 7, 8, 9, 10 years old and you're growing up in a toxic household, you cannot change your environment. You're a dependent child. You cannot change your environment. So what we talk about is once you become conscious around this and you're literally able to then go change your environment, you're able to get a job, get some money, move out of home, that kind of stuff. You are then responsible for your environment.
Yeah, 100%.
And if you cannot change your environment, we want to add to your environment.
Yes, and whether you're stuck in, whether your environment is not what you want it to be, you've got to seek other, like, do something different, like, because you're only going to stay in that place if you know deep down in your heart that you want to do something better, and you feel like you're stuck in that environment, and you feel like they're gonna judge you, or they're gonna say things to you, and they're going to do something to you, well, that's not a safe environment. I mean, and as you said, like the environment is always internally. If you feel unsafe internally, well, it's going to project externally, and that's going to be around the people you're surrounding yourself with, the friends that you have, the family. Again, family is something that's obviously important, but at the same time, you've got to realize that sometimes people in your family may not be serving you the best that you want them to serve you.
And then they're just serving in a different way. They're highlighting
Exactly.
when you're needing to
Yeah,
work on yourself. So it's
exactly.
also, there's a really great quote that is, your family are either a warning or a blessing, something like that. Either way, it's a blessing because your
Yeah,
perspective is going to affect how you feel about
yeah,
it. So see both as a blessing. But the saying is they're either a warning or a blessing. So for me, I grew up with a shit ton of warnings. Do this and it's going to lead you down this path.
yeah.
Right? That's the upbringing I had, which is why
Hmm.
I went, okay, well, I don't want to go down that path. There's the
Hmm.
warning.
Hmm.
What change can I then make? When you asked the question before around, did I have support going through the self-development journey? At the beginning, no, there wasn't, except for the people who I was seeing. So the spiritual healer, psychologist,
Yeah.
coaches, things like that. And then eventually I met people who did support. So I eventually got into contact with different coaches
Hmm.
who were super supportive in very different ways. It was
Hmm.
amazing. And then I met people in different environments who were extremely supportive, and I found where I belong. I found my home. And then what I learned from that is your home is you. Where you belong is
Yeah.
within you. So that way, wherever you go into any environment, you still belong. So when you actually, like, let's say you've moved out of home, when you go back to visit family and you feel so out of place, so unseen, so unrecognized, so unloved, so unknown by your family, when you can see, recognize, accept, love deeply yourself, you can go into any environment and know that you are enough
Mm, mm,
from afar.
and it's home is where the heart is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the peace, the grace, and the blessing you can have from feeling it in your heart is going to give you a new appreciation for yourself. That's my own take on that, and I'm sure
Mm.
that you have a very similar take on that. But I want to wrap it up because now we've segued into how we started the conversation. And thank you again for sharing. I do appreciate it. It was awesome to have you on. I want to leave the listeners and viewers with one piece. So I want to ask you, what is one piece of advice you would give to your younger self?
One piece of advice I'd give to my younger self. Mhm. So it's not words, it's an action. It is me giving my younger self love through a hug, just holding my younger self as my higher self, as who I am. The advice within that resonates with me is love. It's to love yourself. Um, of course, I could go back and say a billion different quotes, a billion different sayings, a billion different pieces of advice. But the one thing that stands out the most is just holding my younger self, just sending love. Because what that does is the advice within that is everything is going to be okay. The advice within that is you can do this. The advice within that is look at me now. This is what you're becoming. Like, the image is so much more powerful than a string of words. Words are very important, they have a huge effect. Though the image that I see for myself, whenever I think about, telling my younger self something, it's an image that pops up, not a sentence. And that really works well for people who think in pictures, not words.
Well, yeah, it's true.
Um,
Everyone feeds in pictures.
yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Well, and lastly, how can people find you? What is your socials? I think we've got an idea of what you do. So how can people find you?
Amazing. So on Facebook, my name is just Tasha Nicholas. On Instagram, it's tasha.nicholas_coaching. I am about to start up a YouTube channel as well. That will be the same. And the maybe in the future a podcast as well. So as you find my Facebook and Instagram, you'll be able to see links to other social media platforms that I'll be on. Yeah, that's pretty much how you can find me.
Awesome. I just realized that at the start of the conversation, I called you by the wrong name. But anyways, I was like,
It's right. Everyone does that. Everyone says
everyone.
Nichols instead of Nicholas.
I don't know where I got
Super
that from.
common thing that happens.
It's like,
Always says
oh,
Natasha instead of Tasha. Always happens. It's all good.
awesome. Well, thank you again for jumping on. I do
My
appreciate it.
pleasure.
And yeah, we'll call it a wrap. And if you like what you hear, please like, share, comment, key takeaways, and look further for more. Thank you again.
Fill
Bye.
up your cup and overflow from it. Bye.
Overflow.